Hi, hello, welcome back. Back with the Liber AL. We got up to chapter 1, verse 56 last time, a couple of weeks back. So we're going to continue and just try and finish chapter 1 today. And just to recap a tiny bit, I've done a few recaps already, so not for too long. You know, this chapter starts, it's all about Nuit, which is about the expanse of existence. If you imagine yourself not being so much of a human ego, but just a pinprick of awareness, which is intrinsically an ecstatic state. You're not in a position to control anything. Everything is just kind of flowing through you. Intense emotions, brilliant, beautiful vistas and amazing experiences. And I think the text, it's deliberately recalling the first year of life before the ego starts to develop. We get to about 2 and then we start to kick off. Before that, we're just being carried along through life by our parents, other caregivers, whoever. And then, we start to push back, to shout and scream no, the terrible 2s. We start to create a sense of inner space for ourselves, and then our egoic self develops, which anyone in psychology or philosophy will tell you is super necessary. And within those paradigms, for sure it is. But of course, that egoic development is a process of being instrumentalized, usually by the culture in which we're brought up. And there still is this early first year of life, somewhere recorded back behind all of that stuff, where we were just like a pinprick of awareness, surrounded by, the universe, whatever is around us. And it is completely, incredible. So early on in this chapter, Nuit is trying to invoke this in people. Help me, O warrior lord of Thebes, the thinking mind, in my unveiling before the children of men. And then it goes more into negotiating. This is a channeled work. It's coming from this character Iwas. And of course, you've got to find people. It's got to appeal to people. So it's going to appeal, if it's coming from the esoteric schools and more left-hand path, a bit edgy, a bit tantric, it's got to appeal to people who are a bit on the outside. Culture's heavily instrumentalizing people, and a certain proportion of those people are just not really getting a result out of a culture for whatever reason. Maybe the beautiful woman across the road just didn't fancy them when they were 16. The cute guy down the coffee shop gave them no interest whatsoever. Maybe they just don't feel like they fit into the working culture around them. You feel different. And traditionally, esoteric schools, particularly left-hand path, esoteric schools are going to go after these guys and they're going to promise you stuff. And this is not to put it down. It's just a practicality. And it's not to say it's not true. It's just to say it's a practicality. Understanding the kind of rebel that you got within this kind of late stage Piscean era culture, the rebels will be very attracted to someone from the outside who's coming to tell them, actually, hey, you're the good one. You're the one who should be getting everything. You should be getting all the beautiful women. You should be getting the cute guy. You should be getting the power, the money, the prestige. This will be a very attractive story to many people, particularly young people from a rebellious background. In a more extreme level, if you consider cases of people getting possessed by demons or spirits, whatever you want to call them, often the spirit is offering the person something. And it's going to come in, and say, hey man, the way you're getting put down by those guys at college, it's not right. I see you, you're so much better than them. Spirit wants to get in. If it's a bad spirit, it can just ride the person, ride them till they're burned out. And maybe it's kind of exciting and a big dopamine thrill, because a lot of this stuff is to do with dopamine when you rip it all apart. But of course, it's kind of an unconscious life as well, albeit one that is very attractive to us when we're at a certain age. So this is kind of underwritten in here, in this book 1, this offering, exciting stuff that's going to happen. And that's woven in with, the reality of mystical experience, which in these heavily instrumentalized cultures in the West is broadly denied to people. We're reared, we develop the kind of ego that's very functional to go out and work for our culture, maybe go out and fight for our culture. contain propagandist memes for our culture. And mystical experiences is not easy. When your brain has been that instrumentalized, you might be relatively wealthy or be surrounded by wealth. But of course, it's not easy to get to mystical experience. And so what tends to happen is this rather conspiratorial way of seeing the world, that it's being denied, by some force. Your true self is being denied by some force, which in many ways it is. Anyway, let's get back to the text. I think we need to start up with, so we're at verse 57, the first book. Invoke me under the stars, love is the law, love under will. Nor let the fools mistake love, for there are love and love. There is the dove and there is the serpent. Choose ye well. He, my prophet, hath chosen, knowing the law of the fortress and the great mystery of the house of God. So we're getting into the last phase of Nuit's talk here, and she's really kind of pulling us out into like a kind of virgin terrain in the middle of nowhere, a desert, a wilderness somewhere, with the stars and the moon above, and this sense of just raw passion that's not being controlled by our egoic self and the culture that's around us. There is the dove and there is the serpent. Probably the serpent type of love is a bit more exciting. That passion and intensity to it. Choose ye well. He, my prophet, hath chosen, knowing the law of the fortress and the great mystery of the house of God. I think the great mystery, I'm not sure about the law of the fortress, but it's certainly, you kind of need a fortress. You kind of need, when the initial stages of development and very rebellious, we always want freedom. But at some point you need this sense of hard boundaries, such that your energy can rise and you can get awareness of yourself. You can start to see what's happening inside of you. And the great mystery of the house of God, that it's not necessarily what it seems. Perhaps you may need a bit of time with the devil or whatever to kind of get a reversal, some of the energy currents within you, to see yourself. I'm going to continue. All these letters of my book are aright, but Tzaddi is not the star. This also is secret. My prophet shall reveal it to the wise. So this is one of these kind of lines that sucks you in a bit, with its kind of intimation that there's something here that the wise person could get. There's a Hebrew letter Tzaddi here. And Tzaddi is not the star was famously taken by Crowley to mean that, Tzaddi, the Hebrew letter, should not be assigned to the star, the tarot key, the star, key 17, because all these old letters of my book probably does refer to the tarot. But Tzaddi is not the star. But this, it doesn't necessarily have to be this, really. I think that's a bit of a kind of blunt interpretation. It's not necessarily a very wise interpretation, in my opinion. And more likely, Tzaddi is representing a path of meditation. Hebrew letter Tzaddi has a numerology of 90 degrees, which is like your body at 90 degrees to the earth, enter a state of meditation. But it's saying it's not the star. If we go back to right at the beginning here somewhere, you find it. Every man and every woman is a star. So this is, it's saying this is kind of left-hand path. Left-hand path, if you remember the last episode of this I did, we talked about the left-hand path, the path of working with the ego, not trying to negate the ego, but trying to ripen the ego to the point at which it kind of drops off, like a ripened fruit, and allows a kind of liberation to take place. So I think that's much more likely it's talking about this, rather than a direct reference to tarot. Tzaddi is not the star. This also is secret. My prophet shall reveal it to the wise. So this path of meditation, it's saying, is not the star. This is a left-hand path thing, I believe. Crowley, of course, was a big fan of meditation, but I suspect, given the rebellious nature of his text, it's saying more something like that, rather than talking about the tarot. Let's continue verse 58. I give unimaginable joys on earth, certainty, not faith, while in life, upon death, peace unutterable, rest, ecstasy, nor do I demand aught in sacrifice. So again, what's significant here, I give unimaginable joys on earth. So, Nuit is saying you don't need to just go off into some sort of abstract astral realm to get pleasure. You can get it here on earth, in your body, maybe with other bodies. There's a lot of tantric statements in this book, particularly this first chapter. If you're at all a fan of Osho, you can learn a lot about Tantra from that guy, rather good controversial character, regarded by one of the Rinpoches as the final incarnation of the craziest Tantric master ever. And this idea, that you expand yourself, expand your energy through sexual experience, through welcoming intensity, the intensity of emotion, and trying to be able to hold more intensity within you without needing defensive strategies. Certainty, not faith, while in life. So it means like getting this kind of inner connection so that you can just move into the world. You don't need to believe in something. You don't need to believe in a God. Just have this inner connection, very attractive to people. Upon death, peace unutterable, rest, ecstasy. Nor do I demand aught in sacrifice. So you don't need to sacrifice anything. Again, very left-hand path stuff. Verse 59, my incense is of resinous woods and gums, and there is no blood therein because of my hair, the trees of eternity. So slightly odd, that last line in terms of English language, but again, it's just this natural ecstasy of being. Nuit is talking about this natural ecstasy of being. The trees of eternity, like my hair, the star goddess with this long hair encompassing everything. Go on, my number is 11 as all their numbers who are of us. The 5-pointed star with a circle in the middle, and the circle is red. My colour is black to the blind, but the blue and gold are seen of the seeing. Also have a secret glory for them that love me. So number is 11 often associated with this macrocosm, microcosm, the 6-pointed star and the 5-pointed star. Also 11 is the number of the positive aspect of the astral light. Aleph, Vav, Daleth, Aud. 9 is the number of the negative aspect. 5-pointed star is like a symbol of the human body as well, from Pythagorean things. Red circle in the middle. My colour is black to the blind, so you can't be seen by the blind, but blue and gold are seen of the seeing, maybe like stars into heaven in the night sky. A secret glory for them that love me. Offering, because to go back into this state of just like, come out of egoic awareness, if you take some psychoactive substances, tryptamines, if you do heavy breathwork session or something like that, you go back. Go in trance dance or something like this, you go back into this kind of very primal state. There's a temporary dissolution of the ego. So it is like a glorious, absolutely ecstatic inner space. Of course, the ego comes back in, but it gives you a taste of something deeper. Let's continue along. But to love me is better than all things. If under the night stars in the desert thou presently burnest mine incense before me, invoking me with a pure heart and the serpent flame therein, thou shalt come a little to lie in my bosom. So it's more of the same, giving these images of just actually doing something with a pure heart instead of this kind of rational mind always thinking and planning about what's going to happen all the time. And we all desire that, of course, underneath this serpent flame. It's a little bit recalling the kind of dichotomy of like the later part of Revelation, like Revelation 17, book of Revelation 17, the idea that energy can move, it can stay in the body and create spiritual experiences, or it can be projected out into egoic self-aggrandizement. For one kiss wilt thou then be willing to give all, but whoso gives one particle of dust shall lose all in that hour. This one kiss, like the first kiss of a lady of initiation, Nia, Ain. I still remember well the hour that broke my spirit's sleep. I think Shelley, is it? Revolt of Islam. This idea that, you're just trudging along through life in your egoic mind and just getting through the day, and something happens, something touches you, and for an hour or whatever you're in a completely different state. Can be seen as the kiss of a lady of initiation. But if you just give your mind, one particle of dust, if you just give your thinking mind to that state, then you lose all in that hour. So these are all it's all very similar kind of ideas, just being spoken in different poetic ways. Ye shall gather goods and store of women and spices. Ye shall wear rich jewels. Ye shall exceed the nations of the earth in splendour and pride. No more being low self-esteem, rebel. You're gonna become this incredible being covered in jewels, but always in the love of me, and so shall ye come to my joy. So there's always this kind of walking back, that it shouldn't be about disappearing to egoic aggrandizement, which is of course what the great peril of the left-hand path. You're having sex with lots of people, and the idea is that you're gaining awareness from this practice. In the old days, there would be workshops where you would, have sexual experience with people, and then for a certain length of time, and then give each other feedback about the experience. It can be pretty grueling, but that gives you, that kind of justifies it on a spiritual level, the promiscuity of it. But of course, you can just get addicted to the self-aggrandizement of sex. So that's a constant theme, in the background of the whole of the Liber AL. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. This making sure, yes, you can go out and do your thing and get what you want, have the sex that you want, get the power that you want, but you've got to do it, in service of me, in honor of me, trying to find me within you, essentially, as opposed to just aggrandizing yourself and getting addicted to experiences. I charge you earnestly to come before me in a single robe and covered with a rich headdress. More of the same, I think, coming simple. I love you, I yearn to you, pale or purple, veiled or voluptuous. I who am all pleasure and purple and drunkenness of the innermost sense, desire you. Super Tantric. Getting like, if you want to look up like Saraha, early Tantric mystic and arrowsmith woman. Saraha's he's kind of from a noble background in, I think, northern India somewhere, like 2,000 or 1,500 years ago or something. And he's been, he's supposed to become like a king or something like this, or some kind of prince or high up person, but he's just too interested in the mystical path, and he goes to stay a long time with this mystic guy who teaches him all the kind of, it's a classic sort of mystical story. He teaches him all the kind of mental stuff about being a Brahmin and this kind of thing, being a mystic, but he still doesn't have the actual experience. He knows all this knowledge is loaded into his mind, and he's kind of come away from his teacher, and he's just in the old town square, and he starts to fixate on this arrowsmith woman who's kind of just super, she's making arrows, but she's super engaged with her work. And he goes up to her, and she kind of abuses him a bit and laughs at him, and he ends up becoming her initiate, essentially. She's a dakini, it turns out, and her task is to initiate the man, to show him, to take him beyond this mental control and push him into mystical experience. So they're having sex in the graveyards and breaking all sorts of taboos together and stuff like that. His family are like all rejecting him and going to his dad and saying, oh my God, what's happened to Saraha? But he doesn't care, because he's getting what his heart most desires, being with this arrowsmith woman. And this is a very similar energy. Put on the wings and arouse the coiled splendour within you. Come unto me. Same thing. Okay, let's get towards the end. At all my meetings with you shall the priestess say, and her eyes shall burn with desire as she stands bare and rejoicing in my secret temple. To me, calling forth the flame of the hearts of all in her love chant. So it's more tantric stuff, and there's more, rejoinders to make sure you're doing these things for me, which on a deeper level really just means doing it for self-awareness. Going out there, discovering what it's like to have a ton of cash, what it's like to wear really cool clothing and go to the poshest, most expensive places, what it's like to have different sexual partners who are hot and exciting, but not getting attached into that, not just getting locked into that so it becomes an addiction. And a few years down the line, you'll just do anything to maintain it. Sing the rapturous love song unto me, burn to me perfumes, wear to me jewels, drink to me, for I love you, I love you. I am the blue-lidded daughter of sunset. I am the naked brilliance of the voluptuous night sky. To me, to me. The manifestation of Nuit is at an end. So yes, beautiful and powerful, super tantric. And that brings us to the end of chapter 1 of Liber AL Vel Legis, the Book of the Law, channeled by Aleister Crowley in 1904. And traditionally with this book, it's considered not okay to give interpretations of it. There's a famous line in the comment. Let's just have a quick scroll down to the end here. Because it's also instructive. Those who discuss the contents of this book are to be shunned by all as centres of pestilence. And again, this is coming back to the perils of this left-hand path. It's such a direct path and it feeds the ego in order to ripen it. But like I'm saying, there is this danger. The dopamine circuits just get caught up in the sense of egoic expansion. And so this comment is again trying to stop people getting too engaged with this book in this manner. Even though it itself is making these comments like, who's going to be, or it's kind of intimating like who is going to be the child of the new eon, who's going to be the prophet that will come and reveal what all this book is about. It's setting these kind of exciting little challenges for the ego. Because of course, as a young person or as an old person as well, we want to be the child of the new eon. We want to be the Messiah. And yet at the same time, it's trying to pull it back as well. And so these two currents are constant within the opening chapter of this text. If you look back at the history, you can see guys like Frater Akkad, Charles Stansfeld Jones, or a little bit later on, I think, Jack Parsons, both got heavily engaged with Crowley and with the Book of the Law, and both rather crashed and burned. One literally, without any disrespect. I don't know the whole story. But Crowley himself seems to have managed, to negotiate this much better, because I think he had a much better understanding somewhere on a deep level of just how intense and how challenging this kind of path is. And then if you come forward a few decades, to the time, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, guys like Osho, as I'm saying, they really were masters of the left-hand path, or certainly one variation of it. And so, discussing this book, it's important for me that I'm not doing it for my own self-aggrandizement, but I also spend time in my day to let go of this kind of egoic mind and to go in myself to this Nuit Hadith experience. And I think that is important if you're looking at a text as direct as Liber AL. Okay, cool. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Devraj Sandberg. This is Mysticism in the Body. And I'll be back soon looking at other passages in the Liber AL. We may continue, or I may just grab bits and bobs. We'll see how it goes. I'll see what I consider to be appropriate in the moment. And thank you all very much.